All right. Are we live then? Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it says it's recording.
Yeah.
All right. And then I do the full screen. There we go. Move it over. All right. It says we're up to 21 participants.
People probably still come to going in. Sarah, do you want to put rename yourself and put your location and where you studied? I mean, we see it was Toulouse, but
Yeah, so Sarah, yeah. Just your location, yeah, and then the location you studied. All right. Am I not supposed to see anyone?
do you see like us, just the four
I
of us?
just, yeah, just the four.
Yeah, that's
That's
it.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone can hear us. There's 25 total people. Okay. We'll be starting shortly. I think there were 35 signed up, so we'll just wait a little bit. I am Deborah, and I work for CIEE, and I'm located in Minneapolis. I'm an enrollment coordinator. And then we'll be having two student alumni presenting, and that will be Sarah and Jaden. I don't know if you want to just say hi. You'll be talking later on during the slides, but if you just want to say hi.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I live in Palo Alto, California, and I went to Toulouse, France this summer. I'm really excited to talk to you about homestays.
Hi, I'm Jaden. I live in San Diego, California. And this past summer, I studied abroad in Palma de Mallorca, Spain, and it was a wonderful experience. I had a great time with my host family, so I'm excited to share with you all.
All right. Well, thank you. Looks like it is right at the top of the hour, so I will give it another minute before I start the slides. Just a little bit about why I'm excited to be talking about host families tonight and homestays is that I was lucky enough to stay with a host family for a short period in high school. I was in the Yucatan Peninsula in a small town called Valladolid, which is not too far from Merida, where our CIEE center is located. And then in my freshman year of college, I was able to stay with a host family in Cuernavaca, which is outside of Mexico City. And then in my junior year of college, I stayed in Sevilla with a host family. So they were all very unique situations, and every family was unique, but a wonderful experience. So I'm really excited to hear about our alumni and hearing about their experiences. All right, I will start the slideshow here. Let's see. Okay, and then for questions, you can post questions in the Q&A. We're not going to be having chat um, enabled for tonight. Oops, I'm going to hide this. All right, so we are going to be recording this, just so everyone is aware of that. And then tonight we're going over the homestay experience. Why choose CIEE? We've been doing this for 75 years, so we have a lot of experience. It started after World War II when the founders decided that they wanted to bring more peace to the world and that would be achievable by having exchanges. So they started sending students over to Europe as World War II was ending, just to try to develop peace and understanding through human diplomacy. And so throughout the years, there's been many different types of exchanges. We also bring inbound students to the US. And then the past 10 years, we've been sending high school students for the summer programs. We support over 30,000 students every year. So that encompasses both college and high school students. But we have a lot of experience and a wide network. And then we're also a nonprofit. So we're not doing this to make, someone a lot of money. We're trying to make it so that as many students as possible get the opportunity to have this experience and go abroad. And on that note, we also administer the largest scholarship fund in the US for high school students. We are very fortunate. We have approximately 6 million that we're able to give to students and spread it out to different students. And without those funds and scholarships, so many of our students wouldn't be able to get the opportunity to study abroad. And here's a map of all the different locations. We have approximately 35, a little bit more than 35 locations for our summer abroad. Those are located in, or those are the orange colored circles. As you can see, a certain part of the map is more colorful than other parts, but we're slowly opening up some of the stuff that had closed and expanding as well. We're lucky that this year we're able to get into China, into 2 locations that we previously were in. So last year we only had Taipei for learning Mandarin. And then we do have high school semester abroad, and those are located in the similar places, but much fewer for our semester abroad. And then we also do gap year abroad. In addition to all of this, we also have our college programs as well. And I do not know why this is not going away. Sorry. All right. Our language programs are 4 weeks long, where our topic ones are 3 weeks. I'm going to go back, sorry. So with our language programs, those all get to have a homestay. That's a requirement. It helps with the language skills, but also with the cultural and immersion skills. This is why students learn so quickly when they are studying with CIEE. We have 7 different languages with Spanish. We are in Argentina and Mexico and Spain. French is in France. Germany, we have, or sorry, German is in Germany. Italian is in Italy. Arabic is in Morocco. And then Japanese in Japan. And then Mandarin. We're now 2 locations in China and then Taiwan. And they stay with local homestays for the entire month from day 1. They'll start staying with the families. And because of the immersion process, they are able to learn about a month. In 1 month, they're able to learn 1 year of what they would learn in high school. And that's because, you're thinking and speaking and having to communicate the majority of the day in that language, as long as students take that pledge to do that. That's the most important part. And then you're able to get 4 college credits. And we partner with Tulane University, and they will send out those credits in the fall if you choose. It's an option. It's $150 additional to get those, but they since it's through an accredited university, they are accepted by the majority of other colleges and universities. And then we also have the Global Seal of Biliteracy, and this is really important because it transcends state borders and even national borders, and it is a symbol of being able to be literate in more than one language. So a little bit about our host families. They are vetted and visited by our local staff. So our site staff in all of our centers and locations, they are continuously meeting with families and vetting them. They also take surveys at the end of homestays to see what the student experiences are like, to make sure that they align with our goals. Everyone that is 18 and older will have a background check or equivalent to a background check, because every country is a little bit different on how background checks are done. And so anyone that lives with the host family, a lot of times they may have older children still living there. And the main reason that they're wanting to host is that they need to be motivated by intercultural exchange. And so many of the families will be hosting continuously. They could be hosting during the school year. They may only host in the summer. It's a wide variety. They only receive a small stipend to cover the cost of the meals. So what to expect with host families? That's a good question, because every host family is so different. Like I said, I lived with 3 different host families, and everyone was very different. And it can depend on the culture. It can depend. It can just depend on the family makeup. Most host families don't speak English, or at least they shouldn't be speaking English with the students, so that they learn the local language much quicker. Placements can be single or multiple. The majority of them tend to be doubles. And then we do not recommend requesting placements with a friend or sibling, and that's probably the most requests that we get, especially when giving presentations or even on the applications, is, can I stay with this friend, or I want to be with this sibling? We recommend that, if they're lucky enough to be on the same program as you, that's great. You're going to see them. You want this to be a completely immersive experience and learning about the cultures. So you will see your friends, just like you see your friends when you're at home. You will see them. You don't have to live with them when you're abroad. And it's about making new friends. These are friends that you'll have for hopefully a lifetime. And then the things that we do take into consideration is allergies and dietary restrictions for your placement. We want to make sure that our host families are able to meet those needs. So when you fill that part out on your form, that is something that will help determine who you stay with. All right. Like Jaden, you want to go next? And then Sarah.
Sure. So what I learned from my host family, I actually don't even know where to begin with this question, because I learned so much from day 1 to the very last day. My host mom, right off the bat, treated me, she was like an older abuela type, and she, instead of abuela, we called her Busi instead, for short, which is what her granddaughter calls her too. And she treated me right away like her own granddaughter, and it was a wonderful experience. And what I learned the most from her was taking the time to really sit down and talk to someone and spend that time together. And like every day after dinner, we would take the time to learn from each other, which I really appreciated. And her and I could pretty much have fluent conversations in Spanish, even though my brain was tired from a long day. And I don't know if some of you are familiar with the Spanish culture, but dinners go until the late hours of the night. So, but to be able to maintain that conversation with her was something very special, and for her to feel comfortable to communicate with me in a language that she was comfortable in and share her life in that way, and all the fun, crazy stories she lived through living on an island and things like that is something that I found to be very special. And like, I didn't just learn that, like I said in my quote, I didn't just learn about, like, apart from culture and new foods, like we made paella a few times, but apart from that, it's really about connecting with people anywhere in the world and having that ability, which is something that I find so special in having a second language.
All right, thank you, Jaden. Sarah?
So my host family consisted of my host mother and a host little brother. And I feel like even though every host family in my program was very different and everybody had different personalities, something all of them had in common was they were also acceptant of us. And I feel like one of the very big stereotypes of being American is that other people don't tend to accept us because they think that we're very arrogant or just almost stupid almost. But I felt that my family had a really big passion to be able to learn from me, as well as I had the passion to learn from them. And I feel like homestays are just a very special part of the CIEE program where you can really connect and resonate with each other and learn so much, not only about the culture, but maybe about the daily life of people living within that culture and within that country. And I felt like that was a really important part of me being able to develop my language skills, but also for me to grow as a person and become more independent, responsible, and empathetic. I felt like it was a very big character building experience.
Thank you. And then whose slide is this one? You want to talk a little bit about it?
Oh my gosh, it's fun to see all these pictures together again, and like making this collage was really, really fun. Up at the top it's like a kind of a wide angle picture of my host mom and my roommate on the first day we touched down in Mallorca. And the first thing our host mom had us do was take the bus, show us our bus route for our everyday, trek to school. And we walked the city, and she took us to her favorite gelato place, which I visited, I would say, almost every day after that. And we walked around the city together, and she basically took us around her life. And that gelato trip, for whatever reason, is something that stuck in my head. And then again at the top is my host mom's granddaughter and her boyfriend. We had a very special host family dynamic. My host mom, her daughter was also a host mom. So I had like a host, I don't even know how to describe, like another host sister. And at the top is a picture of the three of us, and it was really, really fun. And a few of these other pictures are pictures of the dogs that we had, or she has, but they were kind of like our dogs for the month. And then at the bottom corner, I want to mention this picture because my Spanish teachers in the US actually got to visit me on my study abroad and meet my host family. And my profes, my Spanish teachers, are the reason why I was on that study abroad. So it was a very special full circle moment to have all of them together. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jaden. Sarah?
So I have a considerably less amount of photos, but I really did try to put all the ones that I felt were most meaningful to me. The first one in the top left is me and my host brother. During my stay there, I had really short hair. Now it's growing out a little, so. But what we were doing was playing mini billiards, and that was really fun to do, especially because it was almost tradition for us to play a sort of game, or even if it was like playing soccer outside, doing a little basketball, or playing a board game. We had this tradition where as soon as dinner was over, we all ate our dessert, very French style. Then we would just sit down on the veranda and just play some games and chat about our day. Even more so after the dinner, when we probably already spent an hour and a half chatting about our day, we just shared a little more and kept each other company. So that was really fun. And in the second picture was actually my farewell gift from them to me. And that was really touching. They just dropped off this little gray bag in my room in like the middle of the night on the day that I was going to fly back to America. And it was just full of different foods and a bath towel, all of them just so traditionally French. There was like confit de canard, which is like beef, duck pate. And then they also had like a little chocolate bar. It just felt like a very important memento that they were giving me a piece of France to bring back home with me, even if it would probably disappear in my stomach a couple weeks later. And the middle picture is us enjoying a raclette. The one beside that is me and my host mom visiting the Minotaur in a technology museum. The one on the right is a little cake, opera cake, which we had shared after my host mom bought it. And on the bottom, we have another photo of me and my host brother. And the one right next to it is actually a little photograph from the Aerospace Museum, which is very iconic to Toulouse. And my host mom was so kind enough to bring me there on one of her days off after I came back from the CIEE program. And I felt really touched when she did that. One beside it is another very famous moment of this summer where we went to watch the rugby game between the Toulouse Stade team and another town. And that was also really fun. And almost probably the whole population of Toulouse was just sitting in that square, eating food and watching the rugby team play. We did win that game, so that was awesome. And then next, we have my final gift to my family, which is a board game that I've always enjoyed playing with my family here in the US. But I felt like I also had to give a little part of my life to them, something that they can keep forever. And maybe, hopefully, whenever they play it, they'll think of me a little. And then my very last picture is a whole family photo with my brother, my host mom, and our little guinea pig, which is definitely very dear to us.
All right, thank you. So,
Yeah.
did you want to talk about this one as well, Sarah?
Yeah, so in my programs, more specifically, most of us had roommates, like one roommate. So everybody was in partners. I think there was maybe one trio and a couple singles, which I was included in. I was a single resident, but if you go to Toulouse, France, I say it's very likely that you'll live with a roommate. And that's always a very good friendship making experience. And you always have a companion to go around with. At your homestay, they will provide breakfast and dinner. Dinner in France, at least, is definitely home cooked. but breakfast is normally really simple, like just like a piece of bread with some jam, butter, or cheese. And one really important thing that I'd like to point out in my homestay is that we had really long dinner conversations. So using the dinner conversations was a way for me to practice my language in French, and also for me to discover more about the French culture and ask them about things like food or customs, or even things like slang or some memes in France that are special to them.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll be opening up to some questions. There is one question that I do see in the Q&A. It's wondering about language. If you don't need experience, will the family speak a little bit of English? There's no guarantee that at our homestays that they will speak English. Even if you don't know a lot of the local language and you're a novice, you do find ways to communicate. You'll find that when you're just out in the community as well, how quickly you will pick up the language. And, if they're used to hosting, they probably do know certain words, but the key is the quickest way to learn is by always trying to speak in the language, even if you're brand new. In fact, when you're brand new to learning the language, that's when you learn the quickest because you're starting from nothing. And so you'd be surprised at how quickly you pick up a lot of words. It doesn't look like we have a lot of other questions. You can unmute and ask questions if you want, or type it in there. All right, well, we still have a little bit of time. I don't know if, oh, here we go. Before arriving in the country, will we be in contact with our host family? Will the host family meet us in the airport? I'll talk a little bit about that, and then maybe Jaden and Sarah can give their experience. Typically, we let our students know or participants know who their host families are going to be the Monday or Tuesday before they leave. And then you have the opportunity to reach out to them. You may have some contact with them. And then as far as meeting at the airport, it depends on the situation. Most of our programs have chaperones that they will fly over to the country with, and then start off with the center and then meet the students. But it can really depend on the situation. Jaden or Sarah, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure, yeah, definitely download WhatsApp before leaving. My main form of communication with my host family was through WhatsApp beforehand and like during my stay there. And it's just a really easy way to communicate. So yeah.
Sarah, what was your experience before leaving?
Yeah, so once we got the information of who was our host family, like a week before the departure date, then for me, I automatically, immediately just texted them and asked, when can we do a video call? I introduced myself, of course, and told them my time zone and just asked for a video call. And we did a video call before in French, and we got to know each other a little bit. And then after that, on my day of their arrival, I actually had a little bit of a flight mishap. So I was also in contact with them my entirety of my different transitions through different countries. And I told them that, oh my God, I will be so late. Could you please wait for me? And then that was the first time that we interacted. I was incredibly late to the airport.
All right, thank you. And then this one would be specific for Jaden. How did you get to Mallorca?
I Well, so my exact flight path, if I remember correctly, was from San Diego to New Jersey to Germany, and then Germany straight to Mallorca, I think. But I know there's ways like from some people will fly from Madrid to, like, some of my friends on the trip flew from Madrid to Mallorca. I even know there's like a, not that like CIE does this, but for normal travelers, they'll take a ferry from like mainland Spain to Mallorca, and it's pretty quick. So yeah.
Okay. And then did you meet up with your chaperone before heading over to Mallorca, or did you end up having to fly alone?
Yeah, so my dad actually flew with me out to Mallorca, but we overlapped flight paths in New Jersey. So my dad kind of like hung back for a while, and I met the rest of the kids in the CIE group and the chaperones in New Jersey, and then got to know them as we hit Europe and then all the way to Mallorca. So yeah.
Okay, great. And then for either of you, have you ever known someone to get lost during your program? And what happened if they got lost?
On my program, there was no one that got lost. It was like drilled into our brains from day one, stay in a group, which is the smart way to do anything abroad. So no, we didn't have any problems with people getting lost, and I always felt very safe and together with my group and our chaperones. Like, my program lead was very, very good at making sure that she knew where everyone was at all times.
And Sarah, did you have any experience with anyone getting lost?
Yes, I did type in the chat, but unfortunately, there was one girl who did get lost in my program, and her phone died, and none of her friends were around. But the locals were really friendly with helping her, even though she didn't speak French like at all. And they got her phone charged. They texted the CIE program leaders, and they came to pick her up. And a note was that this was, I think, the second day of our program, so she probably didn't know anything about the layout of the city, and she was definitely completely lost and had no idea where to go, but the locals were super helpful and got her back on track.
Can I just make a quick plug?
Sure.
Because if you watch our latest episode of our podcast, Out of Your Comfort Zone on YouTube, that student that got lost in Toulouse is actually a participant and tells that story on our podcast, if anybody is interested, for a little chuckle and to see how, you know, kids figure these things out. And that's part of the lessons of studying abroad and the independence that you gain.
Yeah, getting lost is definitely a big fear, but you could be amazed at how quickly you can figure your way around even without a smartphone or GPS. All right. Is there a possibility to apply for free? If there is, I'm not the person that is in kind of in charge of that. So anyways, what was Mallorca like, the views and the culture?
Mallorca was beautiful. I don't know if you Google Palma de Mallorca, the first picture that pops up is normally the cathedral, and that was my view every single day. That was my main city walk. It was incredible. I'm definitely biased, but if you're studying Spanish, please go to Mallorca. It was an incredible experience. It has the perfect mix of the city, like the pace of a city life, and like the chill of island life, because it is an island. And it has that rich Spanish culture, and something about an island, it feels like you're kind of like, there's like you're you're kind of in a bubble a little bit. Like everything is close by. Like my walking radius was like 8 miles a day, and you could see you would hit the city and then you'd be at the beach, and that was pretty much our routine every day. During our free time, we would either go to a small coffee shop, get a coffee, or we would be laying on the beach. And there's that perfect balance and option of things to do on the island. It was gorgeous. Everyone there has such a amazing vibe. Like, just strangers on the street were so kind and really laid back. But like I said, there's also that really great mix of speed and pace of a city like Barcelona or Madrid has.
All right, thank you. And then did either of you ever have a bad experience on your trip, and how did it get resolved?
I can share first. A couple times, maybe 2 or 3 times, I went out with friends or I was just doing some late night shopping, and I had to get home before the curfew, but the bus station that I went to was really delayed, and I was just literally standing there in the dark. And one time it was actually raining on me, so I was standing under a tree. And honestly, that was a little scary because I was all by myself and I am a girl. So, but nothing happened, and the bus came a little late, but still came, and I got on the bus and went home. So all was good.
My problem, like my bad experience, was also with the bus system. I was one of the few kids in Mallorca that had to take the bus from my homestay to the main part of the city. So gauging that time with buses, like, and making it to where we needed to be on time every single day was definitely a struggle. And it took a lot of planning ahead. And there was a few mornings where we were sprinting to the bus stops, and I had the same like issue with making it home for curfew. The buses were always packed. And there was one random day where one line was down or something like that, and we could not make it home on time. But my host mom was very understanding and patient. I mean, she lives there and she understands how the bus thing goes. So yeah.
And kind of along that line, with the curfews, that's more about safety. It's not punitive where you are punished unless it's probably a consistent issue, but it's more about safety and communicating. Thank you. And then before going to Mallorca, what was your Spanish like? Would you say your Spanish speaking improved a lot after coming back from Mallorca? Are you able to use that outside of Mallorca?
Yeah, so when I went to Mallorca, I had just finished AP Spanish at school. So I had that. I felt like I was very comfortable and secure with the Spanish that I had. I know some kids who are on my level, like in my group level on the program, were definitely not as comfortable speaking, but were really strong in like reading and writing. So there's that difference. I'm definitely a more comfortable speaker when it comes to Spanish. But I was already feeling comfortable, but within like the first week of being with my host mom, it felt like Spanish really started to sink into my brain even more. And it's something that I didn't expect right off the bat, to really start feeling like Spanish was becoming a part of my brain and actually like truly like a second language. And if you're spending a month there, it's like my roommate was in a lower level Spanish class, and she by week 2 was speaking just as much as I was, and she was really nervous in the beginning about being able to communicate and was really self-conscious about it. But after week 2, the halfway point, she was so comfortable, came out of her shell, was able to connect with my host mom on a deeper level, which in her second language, which is something really cool to see, and how fast it is really, really cool.
All right, thank you. And then Sarah, what was your day-to-day schedule?
For I think most language programs, class will start at 9 a.m. So depending on where you live, you'd probably have to wake up at around 8 a.m. to take transportation into the city and to your school, and also, of course, to eat breakfast. But for me, I was in a little bit of a special situation. I lived in a completely different city outside of Toulouse. So I had to wake up at 7 a.m. to take the bus, then the metro, and then to eat breakfast at Toulouse sometimes. But once you get there at 9 a.m., then classes start. You have around 3 hours of classes till 12 p.m., where you're just learning about French culture, the French language, of course, things like grammars, vocabulary, watching videos and movies, doing some role play. But then at 12 p.m., you're free to go for lunch. And lunch was usually actually around 2 hours because it's France. We do that. And then you just go eat with your friends for 2 hours, maybe take a walk if you have some free time. Then after those 2 hours, you will either come back to the school and go out on an excursion, maybe going to a museum, maybe the aquarium for some other programs. We also did some baking classes and some shopping, going to see the aerospace museum. But otherwise, half of the time we had free time in the afternoon. So you just go wherever you want to go. I went sightseeing a lot, going to see all the famous churches, trying out some food, or going shopping. But we do have curfew at 9 p.m., I think, normally during the weekdays. But then Fridays and weekends, we have an 11 p.m. curfew. So I had to make sure that I hopped on the metro and the bus back to my house at around 6 p.m. I'd eat dinner at maybe 7 p.m. and then we'd have a long chat. Then I'd take a shower, do my homework, and go to sleep at around 10 or 11.
Okay, thank you. And then what were some of the biggest culture shocks that you experienced on your trips? Anyone have one of you want to go first, Sarah, since you're already unmuted?
Yeah, sure. So one of the really big culture shocks was that people take 5-minute showers there. They are very conservative about energy and not wasting anything. So you'll see like really big recycling bins. They'll recycle donated clothes, they'll recycle electronics, paintings, anything. It was actually one of our afternoon excursions to go see a recycling center almost, where they repaired broken products, and if they were fit enough, they would resell them at a very, very cheap price. And I saw lots of things that I would have bought, but they were closed, unfortunately. But I think that their tendency to not waste anything was a really big culture shock to me.
And then how about for you, Jaden? Did you have a culture shock at all? When you first met your family, what was that like?
I think maybe one of my biggest culture shocks was meal times in Spain, especially dinner, which I grew to love like immediately because I love to talk. But dinner was normally, we would get home at 9 for curfew, and then we would shower, get ready for bed, and then have dinner at 10. And I don't think my roommate and we went upstairs no earlier than like 11:30 to midnight, because in Spain there's sobremesa, which is pretty much in with after every meal, but especially after dinner. It's a time that you take to talk about your day and just catch up. And it's a really it's very intentional, that time to take and talk with one another and just like be present and in the moment, which is something that I loved. Like I said earlier, like no matter how tired I was, it's still something that I look forward to. I think something that was very special in my host family was almond ice cream, because my host mom told me that almonds were brought to the US from Mallorca. Not sure how true that is, but I was like, okay. So we would always eat almond ice cream every night, and we had rounds of almond ice cream, minimum of 4. So that is why we were up so late talking, having a good time. And yeah, it was a good time.
All right. And then did you receive a cell phone or create a phone plan or receive a SIM card? I can say that our standard is usually to get a SIM card, but what was either of your experiences with that?
I did not have a phone or a SIM card, but a lot of the other kids and like my friends on the trip did have them, and they were, from what I know, they're very easy and like easy to set up. And I believe some of them actually got them in the airport from like program leads, like on the way out there. So they had them as soon as they got to Mallorca.
All right. All right. This one, how much homework did each of you have with your programs? Sarah, I think you're typing, so Jaden, why don't you go first?
Our weekly homework typically for me looked like a presentation that was due on the Friday of every week. Each presentation had a theme, basically documenting your personal growth, both academically and personally, throughout the trip. And it was one presentation due at the end of the week, and so you could work on it at your own pace throughout those 5 days, and then we'd present it on Friday. Some of them would be with partners, some of them, most of the time it was by yourself though, and it always revolved around like one of my favorite ones was urban art, like street art that was in Mallorca, which is a big thing there. So yeah, typically those presentations revolved around what we were learning at the time.
And Sarah, how much homework did you typically have? And what was it like? What was the homework?
So one of the things that we had was going around to the locals and asking them questions and recording that interview. That was one part of the homework, but you can really easily get that done in maybe 5-10 minutes. The main homework was our weekly projects, which it was usually a presentation or to prepare for a conversation. And that required a little more time, maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour maximum per night. But of course, there's no homework on the weekends.
All right. And then how long does the school last for each day?
For me, it was the same as Sarah. It was a 3-hour class schedule, but because of the weather in Mallorca, it's so hot. So we had our excursion in the mornings. We'd have it from like 9 to 12, and then we'd have lunch from 12 to 3, and then class from 3 to 6, and then from 6 to 6:45, 7-ish was when we'd go out, have those community conversations and go in the community and like speak with the locals. But class is 3 hours, very tolerable compared to the American school day. So it was class is very interactive and fun, or at least mine was, and very like lighthearted, not like crazy sitting down for 3 hours, just grinding out the work. But we would have breaks in between. I know my class had a lot of dance breaks, so yeah.
All right. And then how did you with money, how did you bring cash, debit cards, credit cards? we typically tell students to bring debit cards it's the easiest way to withdraw money for local currency. But why don't, Sarah, why don't you tell us about your experience?
I'm just typing this right now, but
Oh,
I also brought exchanged cash that I exchanged it in the US and then I brought it over. I brought around $500, but I think that was a little overkill, but with the extra money, I just splurged a little more. But specifically for France, they are very, very cash oriented. So I think for most European countries, they are also very cash oriented. So that's definitely something you want to look out for. But there are ATMs where you can exchange money, but it just might be at a little bit higher of an exchange rate.
all right. And Jaden?
Yeah, I think it really depends on how much of a spender you are. I'm definitely a spender, especially Mallorca had a lot of good things to offer. So I was a big spender while I was there. But my parents sent me with a debit and credit card. I normally relied on my debit when I wanted to use cash and pulling out money, and things like that. So it I I would personally recommend a credit card, but that's really up to how parents want to handle money and things like that. But yeah, I had both just in case. The credit card was mostly for emergencies and I was mostly relying on my debit card, but I also know that credit cards can be a little safer sometimes. So yeah.
All right. And then what would you recommend bringing to Spain or maybe to France to study abroad, such as international charging ports, clothing, etc.? You do get a list beforehand, but Sarah, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. France, since I went to the south of France, Toulouse is in the south, it was definitely a lot hotter than maybe perhaps Paris. And there were some storms that I anticipated just using like Google. You should definitely Google the climate of where you're going. So I definitely packed lots of very light clothes, like thin, very breathable, something that could sustain sweat, and a little mini umbrella, which is definitely very useful. I also recommend buying a hand fan, whether electrical or just a normal manual one, because it does get very hot and French people don't like turning on the air conditioning. I definitely advise with getting an international charging port. You also have to be aware that wattage and voltage, I don't know which, is very different depending on what country you go to. So definitely do some research on that.
All right. And then we'll get to you too, Jaden, but it looks like Brianna, you wanted to talk a little bit about it as well? Or no? Am I reading that wrong? No. Okay. I thought. Sorry. Go ahead, Jaden.
It definitely depends on where you are in Spain, but Mallorca in the summer has that typical island humidity, but I adapted to it really quick because I'm from San Diego, so that constant sun is definitely something I'm used to. I know some of the kids from the East Coast were in like Midwest were getting fried. Um, but I lived in like overalls and loose clothing, lots of tank tops, and shorts. I know like in Seville, it's way hotter than it is in Mallorca and dry. So that's like Spain in general. It's just different wherever you end up, but for Mallorca specifically, it's definitely like breathable clothing, something you can sweat in. And I always had like a bathing suit on hand just in case we ended up at the beach. So yeah.
All right. And then how much free time do you usually get per day? What does free time look like while abroad? I would say it really depends on the location, but we do keep the students very busy on our programs. So a lot of times free time can be more limited than maybe what students want but parents tend to be happy with their students being busy. But maybe Sarah or Jaden can give a little, Jaden, maybe you can go ahead and describe that a little bit, and then Sarah after that, because it looks like she's typing as well.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to the keeping us busy. I think we were definitely very limited on free time. However, during those lunch hours, like our lunch was from 12 to 3, if you can make your free time as long or as short as you want. If we're eating our lunch on the go, that means we had 3 hours on the beach to just enjoy and hang out, or if we wanted to shop and eat our lunch at the same time, or take 30 minutes to sit down and eat lunch, we could normally like adjust our free time just based on how much we wanted to get out into the city and explore. And then we also had free time from 7 up until curfew, which was 9. And for me, that was normally like my shorter free time. It was normally about an hour to an hour and a half, just because I had to hop on the bus and get home quick. But yeah, your free time is definitely what you make it, for sure.
All right. Sarah, do you want to just talk a little bit about your free time as well? I know you're typing about it.
Yeah, actually my experience was a little different. I thought that we had quite a lot of free time because we actually had some afternoons where there were no scheduled activities, so we could just go out into the world after lunch. I'd say average maybe 2 hours because it ranges from either 1 hour after your activity, but between the time the activity ends and between the time that you probably have to go home before curfew is probably 1 hour minimum, but maximum during those free afternoons is like 5 hours because I would go home at 6 p.m. So I think you could definitely do a lot in that time period, especially take advantage of the days where you get more free time to go see all the really big tourist attractions. Like maybe if you're in London, go see the Big Ben if it's open, or Buckingham Palace. And doing things like that was really fun and definitely a highlight. I think free time was a very big highlight for me.
Would you say that's when you needed extra money is during your free time? Or did you spend more money at all times?
Um, I think I kept it pretty steady with my money spending. I kind of had, so a really big tip that I would give is to put a certain amount in your wallet every day for you to spend, not only just to prevent yourself from overspending, but also to be more wary of pickpockets and thieves. If you carry all of your money on one day and you lose your wallet or someone steals it, you're gonna be pretty broke. But other than that, I think I was pretty okay with the money.
Do you have anything to add with that, Jaden? Or no, pretty similar. Okay. And then would you say that anyone had extra time for exercise, specifically for people who run? Did you have any runners on or do you just get plenty of exercise during the program, just walking around?
On my program, we did have a few runners, and they would normally use the mornings to go on their runs just because it was really hot to do that any other time of the day. And our day didn't normally start until around 9 or 10, so the kids closer to the city would just run throughout the city and then go home and get ready. And they had cross country season to keep up with, and they had plenty of time and the perfect amount of space, and like could run alone if they needed to, just because the city was so packed and there were tons of people around. And so I know that they got their runs in the morning or in the later evening because the sun didn't set till like 9 p.m. So they could go, instead of using their free time after class, they could just go straight home and go for a run then.
All right. And then the one about transportation. So transportation is covered when it's organized through the program. If it's on their own, then that's a different cost. And I think it would really depend on the location. And Sarah, you had typed in a response as well. So Jaden, what did you feel for transportation, Mallorca? Was it expensive, and did you do a lot of walking, or did you take the bus more?
We had cards that were distributed by our program leads to the kids that took the bus, because there were very few of us that had to take the bus home. So weekly, we would get new cards that had a certain amount of passes that we would just scan when we got onto the bus. And if we were out of scans, it was normally like €2, something like that. And I think the bus was probably one of my favorite experiences. I'm not really quite sure why, but it's just so many personalities and different types of people on one sometimes hot and sweaty bus. And it was a great time. I definitely met some fun like bus friends while I was there, because we were on the same route every day. But I didn't find the bus to be expensive. Just like I said, I had the cards that were provided to us by our program.
All right. And then we're getting close to our end time here. We just have 2 minutes left. Let's finish with what piece of advice did you wish you had before you went? Who wants to go first? No, there's something that you wish you had known before you went.
I would say just the very common general travel tips, like keeping your bag safe from pickpockets and knowing how to orient your way around flights. But in terms of the CIEE program itself, when you're in the city and doing your program stuff, I'd say that's very well organized, and they definitely took a lot of situations into account. So whatever challenges you might face, they've probably already dealt with it before and have a very good solution to your problem. So I'd say it's a very easy experience to just like, it's a very safe environment to learn in, and I really recommend it.
All right. And then a very important question. How did you decide where to go? Either of you want to talk about that?
For me personally, I had my top 3 were Mallorca, Yucatan, and Buenos Aires. And I put Mallorca as my top because it was pretty. Like, just to be completely honest, it looked beautiful, and the Spanish culture has always really intrigued me. And this April before I went, I was in Madrid, Barcelona, Granada, and Sevilla. So I kind of just wanted to pursue that Spanish tour, and the island itself and the pictures really intrigued me. Not to be like the don't judge a book by its cover, but I kind of did that, and that helped me pick. So
All right, Sarah, how about for you? Did you do 3 top choices, or were you a person that was able just to go and say, this is the one that I'm doing?
Yeah, for me, Toulouse was really my ideal spot, my ideal city. The reason why I chose France in the first place was because I was born in Canada, born and raised there, and French culture is always a really big thing for me. So it was really always between Paris or Toulouse. And I heard that in Paris, people tend to be a little rude. They tend to try to ignore tourists, and I probably wouldn't learn a lot of French there if people kept speaking to me in English or ignoring me. So I picked Toulouse in the sense that I felt like it would be more beneficial for me. In addition to just, I wasn't really excited in being surrounded by a lot of people, and I didn't feel like the Eiffel Tower was a big thing on my list. So I opted for the really pretty rose pink, vintage, ancient history buildings of Toulouse.
All right. And let's see, we're a little bit over, but there's still a lot of people on. So Jaden and Sarah, if you're okay with it, we'll maybe answer this one last question. When studying, do you have recommendations on things or resources you could have brought to help with the academic aspect of the trip?
I think I can give an answer to that. Something that was incredibly useful for, I think, anyone on a language trip is an online dictionary or an online translator that translates in real time, just in case you see like a poster or like a direction board that you have no idea what it says, but it's really necessary to be able to read. So having something like Google Translate is very helpful in terms of the academic aspect, because through that you can actually learn a lot of new words, new vocabulary and grammar just by seeing it around and understanding what it means in English.
Yeah, and in terms of school and things like that, having your computer, I know my computer was my lifeline. I brought it everywhere with me. I know that can be a little bit problematic when it comes to pickpocketing and things like that, but you can walk around with your backpack on your front instead of your back. But I took my computer everywhere with me. Most of the cafes and things like that had Wi-Fi, so we could work pretty much wherever we wanted to on homework during our free time if we wanted to do that. And we also needed, for my program, we needed our computers every single day, most days in class. So
All right, well, we are almost 5 minutes over. So amazing attendance, and thank you everyone for asking questions and being very interested in what Jaden and Sarah had to say and about their experience. And I hope everyone has a wonderful night. And if you haven't already, please sign up. And start your application soon, because December 1st, if you get it in by then, you can be entered into the raffle for a free flight. And of course, our January 24th is the deadline for scholarships. So you absolutely need to get it in by then. We recommend getting it in actually before the holidays, just because you do not want to be completing any of your applications, specifically the scholarship part, right before the deadline, because there are so many things that could happen to prevent you from getting it done in time. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good night. All right, thanks Jaden and Sarah. Thanks Brianna for being here.
bye, thank you.
Thanks, guys, you're amazing. So
Yes.
good. Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah.
Bye.